we assist the students from the point of admission until the point of departure from Santa Fe College, whether that's departure, whether that's graduation, whether that's transfer prior to graduation. We are with them all the way. So a natural part of that process does come up. How can I, as an international student, qualify for aid or a scholarship? And there are only, and Mia, correct me if I'm wrong, probably 3 or 4 visa classes that can qualify for federal aid, so who are eligible to complete the FAFSA and be considered for federal aid. There are a lot of individuals here who are on the way to permanent residency, and after a certain point along the pathway to permanent residency, they are eligible to fill out the FAFSA and qualify for federal aid. As for the scholarships part, I would defer that to our colleague from the library who is beginning or knows of resources in the library where they could go and read about possibilities for scholarships. It is difficult, though, I can tell you, that most scholarship sources require individuals to be at least U.S. permanent residents in order to qualify for funds. It's understandable. If somebody in the U.S. has funds to award scholarships, they generally want that to be somebody who's going to make a life, or return that investment back inside the U.S.
I don't have much to add. This is really good. Actually, as Christine, I always want to call you Christine. That's Rose Christine. Sorry. As Christine alluded to, there are not a lot of classes of international students that qualify for federal aid. There are some state programs that do assist with undocumented students or students in certain classes of residency, permanent Asian residency. Yes, but that's typically not the norm. So what we tell students if they come to see us, we kind of go through this checklist of things and ask them all of these millions of questions and they, their personal lives to try to see if they qualify for anything, and the pickings are really slim. So I would mirror her summary comment and say that looking for outside scholarships and meeting some of the resources is going to be key.
Can you just touch briefly on those that are coming in with international credits?
International credits, they do tend to make students ineligible based on satisfactory academic progress because they're transferring in a lot of credits into their coursework that has to be counted for financial aid purposes. But a lot of times, once the student comes to talk to us, if we can see where they're still having to take a lot of coursework towards their degree, in addition to the coursework that they've had internationally, we can try to work with the students through the appeal process. It's still an arduous kind of process. There are requirements that have to be met for the appeal, but we, depending on the circumstance, there is a possibility for an approved appeal for a student in international coursework. So we may see students that say, well, I took coursework internationally and I qualified for financial aid, but now they're telling me I don't get financial aid. And it's usually because of the satisfactory academic progress issues.
If I could just add one point, we are getting a lot of students, and I would say the number is increasing, and I think it's partially because of the numbers of F1 visa international students coming to us from the international schools in Central and South America. But we are getting an increasing number of individuals, and also because of the Santa Fe #1 college status now, we are getting an increasing number of applicants who come first to me and say, I'm an international applicant, but in fact the situation is that it is an American born abroad. And so this is an individual who, when you go back to the original definition, are you a U.S. citizen or a U.S. permanent resident, they answered yes to that. They are not an international applicant. And so that individual, by virtue of being a U.S. citizen, can fill out the FAFSA and qualifies for federal financial aid. However, we have to also look at them from the international side. We have to make sure that the high school they completed their credential from was valid, and we also have to look at how that lines up with the U.S. educational system and how their prior experience lines up with the U.S. educational system. This may be somebody who's a U.S. citizen but has no English language speaking ability. So this is where Gail and I are getting, we're doing a little bit of cross-training international but not international applicant.
I have a question.
I have a question. It relates to your slide. That is very intriguing. I'll tell you why. Back in spring term, I had an international student come in wanting to look for scholarships, and he said, there's a way international students can get in-state tuition. I said, huh? What? So he started helping me look it up. This kid was pretty good. He said, UF gets it. He has friends that are getting in-state tuition at the University of Florida. So he went on the website and found the definition. And that led to the state laws that showed, yes, it is written in the state law under some circumstances to get that. The criteria is they have to be receiving a state or federal scholarship of at least $500 or more. So his question to me is, what scholarships can I get that would qualify me for in-state tuition? Started doing some research. I called a person in the International Studies office at UF, and they said, oh, most of them get the book scholarship. He said, the book scholarship. Researching that with them, found out they have a scholarship for international students that pays for their books. And that qualifies them for the fee reduction, which makes several $1,000 difference in what they have to pay. So I was wondering, does that relate to this? Required textbooks? Do we have a book scholarship? Can we get one?
Can we get a book scholarship? Is that the question?
The book.
Well, that's the one that UF uses. That's a University of Florida thing, but somehow it becomes qualified as a state scholarship that in turn qualifies students for in-state fees for their classes. So it sounds like it'd be a very good deal for many international students if there were a path by which they could get that $500 state or federal scholarship to qualify for in-state tuition.
That question was brought to the attention of Dr. Brown and Dr. Sasser, and I think it was a lively discussion for a little while. I haven't heard anything for a little while, but I can inquire again and see what the resolve is, or has it been tabled, pending further investigation. It was a discussion, and I never got a concrete okay, yes or no.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear there's some consideration of it. Thank you.
Okay, give it up for our panel. We've already played through power updates and Q&A. We're going to still keep that till 11:10, but everyone, if you can take a 5-minute break, stretch your legs, get a cup of coffee. You don't have to sit up here.
And don't forget your Smarties.
Please don't forget your Smarties.
Smarties.